All right, welcome back, everyone. We've arrived at our very last session of the 2020 Bowery Capital Marketing Summit. I'm excited to introduce our final speaker, Tim Kopp, the CEO of Terminus, to talk about how retention is the new acquisition. Tim, over to you.
Cool. Well, thanks for having me, guys. Good to be here. What I wanted to chat with you about is retention is the new acquisition. I've got a number of different slides to go through. Popping up with Q&A as we go would be awesome for me. It's a good chance to kind of break this up. First off, a little bit about me. I'm currently the CEO and exec chairman of Terminus, and also general partner at a venture firm called Hyde Park Venture Partners, where we've actually had an opportunity to do a couple deals with Bowery, which is where I met this team. I've been doing marketing for about 20 years now, partly in B2C with P&G and Kopp to start off with, building their digital marketing programs, and then most recently with Exact Target, where we kind of led their growth run, and then the ultimate sale to Salesforce. Hopefully, many of you heard about Terminus, but we are an end-to-end account-based marketing platform named a leader by Forrester and by G2, 1,000 plus customers, over 4 offices. And I think the best is just getting started for us. It's a fun time to be in ABM. What I wanted to do was cover kind of 3 key topics. The first one is this idea of retention as the new acquisition. Some customer strategies to adapt, and then a handful of retention and expansion plays. So what I wanted to first highlight is something. I'm kind of in a cool role because I sit on a number of different boards still, G2 Crowd and a couple of others. And I see a really important trend happening at a board level that is still kind of trickling its way down throughout companies, which is I truly believe that the best CMOs of the future are going to be more asked. Leads won't be the question. It'll be more on revenue and a total book of business. And what I'm saying is a discussion now shifting kind of at a board and CEO level to being asked, CMOs being asked as much about retention and expansion as they are new business, and thinking much more about customer lifetime value. I think it's the most important trend in B2B marketing that's happened in a decade, and it'll be with us for the next 10 years. Kind of some math on the leaky bucket. Like, it's so obvious, but retention drives growth. And when I say retention is the new acquisition, it's absolutely true. I won't walk through all of the math here, but if you look at the difference in churning 1 customer per quarter in this very, very simple example versus churning 3 customers per quarter in this simple example, you could see the size of the leaky bucket that you then need to plug in top line. And so retention actually does stabilize and build growth, kind of stating the obvious. And this is a statistic that's been around for some time, and I think it's why it's really going to turn the discussion from sales qualified leads and opportunities to more customer lifetime value. And it's because of all this expense and time and hassle we spend trying to acquire a customer, but what about retaining them? So many of you have probably heard of the Revenue Collective. Here's kind of a quick statistic on what many companies have experienced with retention in this COVID environment. The headline is it's not getting better for anybody. So, sort of best case is treading water. And then for about the other 50% of companies, there's been a decline in retention, which causes this slow, steady decline in unit economics, making everything much, much, much tougher. So this is kind of a broad sense of where companies are in general. It's pretty striking to see that so many companies are now in this. If you just look at kind of the green in the blue box here down, so many companies who are down, about 25% of companies who are down nearly 10%. So when you think about retention, a number of points here that I think are fairly obvious and that I think we've made. But when you think about retention, and not just really think about it as something that's thrown around, one, it drives growth, particularly during a downturn, and driving stabilization. I also think it's one of the most important metrics that you have for brand health. And if you have happy, satisfied customers who are available for referrals, they're renewing. And I increasingly believe that retention is one of the best indicators of brand health and brand satisfaction. And that leads to virality of the brand and network effects and a number of other things. So, if there's a marketer whose budget has grown dramatically over the last few months, I'd love to chat with you and kind of figure out how you did that. Many of us are working through kind of paused budgets. And I really do believe it's going to completely shift the dialogue to long-term customer value. The framework that we've talked about is we call it the team framework. So it's target, finding the right, more than ever, I think discussions are really going to focus on ICP. Do you have truly the right ideal customer profile? Are you targeting the appropriate customers up front that you can engage and retain for many years? Then how do you go about engaging them on a multi-channel basis, activating kind of throughout the funnel? I think marketing is going to continue to put more and more support toward the CSM organization, not just new business sales. And then how do you go about measuring that? I'll kind of skip over this one. So, it's interesting when you think about how many, and boy, I've been guilty of this, but this idea of how do you really create a full list of all of your customer accounts. Every organization that I work with has a list of named accounts that reps are going after. But when you really drill into what does that list look like, how did you get there, what is the ICP, it gets a little shaky pretty quick. So the idea of how do you really then think about your customer base and try to go in and provide the same level of intelligence and look at really deeper segmentation and cohort analysis, looking at your customers by industry, by product usage, by CSAT, and how do you create specific engagement plans and segments and scores and plays that you would run by customer segment. And it's just an area of marketing that's been neglected. Frankly, it's just been, we've been fairly lazy and apathetic in how we've thought about marketing to the base. So then engaging in a multi-channel way, but this I think is going to become one of the most important pieces of marketing, which is the activation of your programs into the marketing team. You can see the stats here we've talked about for some time now. It is all about marketing and sales alignment, but as many times when you dig in, that just doesn't exist. And I think one of the most important things about ABM, and when I just think about what's happening in ABM, I believe that we have moved from a lead-based world where you can just think about who are all the leads that you have to really trying to go after accounts on a much more targeted basis. And then once you have that list of named accounts, simply just, really fishing with a spear gun instead of a net would be a better way to think about it. Then what are the plays that you're running between marketing and sales with a fewer number of accounts that drive that deeper level of engagement between the two functions? From a measurement standpoint, I heard in a couple of the earlier conversations, a lot of discussion about attribution and all the things that go into metrics and measurement. But the challenge I would pose to you is when you think about your customer marketing programs, are you treating it with the same level of attention and curiosity and attention to detail that you would your new business programs? And the answer is probably not. So I'll talk to you a little bit about what a couple of our customers are doing, which I think is kind of, I hope, helpful or interesting. I'll tell you Terminus, just by running these same plays, it's been a tough environment for everybody, but we've moved net retention 10 points in back-to-back quarters last quarter, and we'll move it by more than that again this quarter by running this same set of plays. So I can tell you firsthand that it does work, and the idea of really thinking about marketing into the base, I would suggest, is the biggest set of low-hanging fruit that you have today. So obviously event budgets have been decimated. We're seeing a big shift of companies shifting what was going into events now into digital ads. You could see what's kind of happened here, which is interesting, a massive spike. Our media impressions being served are up 30 to 40% across the platform. And hopefully you guys, some of you are using Terminus. If you're not, you're asking the question, are you looking for somebody who's using both cookies and IP? And how do you think about reaching people when you can't do direct mail? You can't do some of the things that you were doing with IP addresses to reach people in office. So what are the set of programs that you're running, not only to market to the base, but market to marketers when they're more of in an at-home environment? And because of the way we built our platform with both cookie and IP, it's caused this kind of surge in volume and efficacy. Okay, I think the screen froze up here. Please advance the next one for me.
And Tim, while we're waiting on that, there is one question that came through if you want to maybe tackle that while we get the slides sorted.
Yeah, great. For some reason, I can't see the questions as they come in, so I apologize for that.
I can read it out. So it is one of the retention challenges in our industry is that we get forgotten about. We only get paid based on how much or little our customer uses our service. My boss is convinced the cure to this is email marketing. What would your recommendations be to ensure your customer base doesn't slowly fade away?
Oh my gosh, this is a good one. Well, coming from ExactTarget, this is kind of what we did. We built an email marketing platform. So I love email. I love email marketing. I do think it can be a very helpful tool. What I would say is what we've tried to do, I think email, as much as I love email and I believe in it, I'm going to talk about a couple things here in the next couple of slides that we've done to shift to things that are a little bit more bespoke and a little bit more one-on-one. So an example is customer VIP workshops, where we get our very best customers together in groups of 20, and we just talk about what's going on and share best practices. We share ideas. We talk through things together, and that's been very, very helpful. And that's one of the examples. So I do think email can help, but I think it's kind of it's a bit of table stakes in some ways too. Okay, sorry about that. I don't know what kind of happened with the Zoom there. So let me try to go back. Okay. Or maybe you were trying to rush me along too. So this idea of bespoke customer marketing programs, this is our head of client success. That's actually his basement. And you could see he set up a green screen for Zoom. And it was just this idea of running these sort of very intimate, things don't have to be perfect, guys. I think it is an environment more than ever that raw is fine, raw is better, and real time wins. So the more real time that you're able to share the communication via Slack, via phone, and then these more intimate workshops we have found is incredibly valuable. So get creative and market. The other thing that we've done that's kind of cool, I think, is this is just, I hope, a very practical example and not a Terminus commercial, but you think about this is to me what kind of brings full funnel marketing to life. Every CS representative obviously has a list of named accounts that they're responsible for. So in our case, it's around 50. So about 3 times a week, each CS rep gets a triggered email that comes from our account hub, that it creates kind of a listening platform that we're looking for intent signals and data signals that are coming in from Bombora, that are coming in from website, that are coming in from ads, are they in the app, etc. And it creates these real-time triggers and alerts that are going out to the CS team to say, hey, your customer is showing intent and they're looking around at one of the competitors. Hey, note that your customer hasn't been onto the app for 3 weeks now. So it creates this real-time list of account signals and data that's happening in real time for each one of your accounts and sending out those real-time triggers and alerts for the CS team. Very simple, but very, very powerful. And it's a way to start to bring kind of to the question earlier, how do you start to demonstrate more of the value? It's through these real-time signals and alerts. And boy, it really gets the sales reps and CS team talking because they find this real-time information to be so helpful. The other one is just sort of like being much more careful on how you're identifying growth opportunities within the base. So this is another example of where we pull in a lot of signaling data and tuning data into the application by looking at all the different segments and being much more micro in terms of how you're going about marketing. So even if you're selling into a healthcare organization, there's different buying personas obviously that exist, and it's better understanding the buying centers and the buying personas, what kind of information they're truly interested in, and then delivering that in a more precise way. There was also a discussion I listened into earlier that I really appreciated and enjoyed, which is we talk about brand marketing and demand generation like they're two completely different silos. Like, are we driving demand here, or are we driving brand? And I think it kind of turns out, and many of you have realized this, the days that you do a press release or you do a big product launch or you put something in market, you see your biggest demand generation days. So brand absolutely drives demand. We know this in B2C. This has already happened. This is how B2C companies were built. B2B is just about 10 years behind, and we're now seeing these studies come out over and over and over again. And the most magical brands today are finding a way to seamlessly kind of connect their brand experiences with demand. So I realize I'm kind of getting, okay, cool. So just one more slide here. So maybe what I'll do is just sort of try to wrap this up in one way. If there's one takeaway from this, I want you to realize that the world of marketing that is coming, I am absolutely convinced over the next 10 years, is we're going to shift from a lead-based world to an account-based world. In that account-based world, expect to be asked about customer lifetime value, retention, what plays that you're running to the base, every bit as much as you are about acquiring new customers, and be much more thoughtful and prescriptive and frankly, better marketers in terms of how it is that you're thinking about the base and your current base of customers, and how the power and advocacy of that customer base is ultimately the biggest tool that you have to drive the brand. So it's probably a good place to wrap it, so I don't end up overstaying my welcome. I apologize, I can't see questions coming in sort of in real time here. So am I missing anything?
No other questions have come in so far, so we'll give people a few more seconds if they have any. Somebody was asking if the deck will be available after. We will be, so these sessions are being recorded, and so these sessions will be available for replay.
Yeah, and what I'd say is that I know I covered a lot here. It's sort of a big concept. I predict that a year from now, you'll look back and say, I think that guy knew what he was talking about. And right now it feels like you might be scratching your head a little bit, but believe me, every set of, I mean, at Bowery, I'm sure this is what a lot of you guys are focused on within every single one of your portfolio companies. You're going in and you're thinking about retention and what you're doing to solidify the base as much as you are acquisition. That's going to have a trickle-down effect all the way down through the operating functions of marketing. If you want to chat through any of these concepts or hear any more about what we're doing or get some real-time examples, you can sort of take to your boss or take to the head of sales or CS or share with the CEO. You can just hit me direct. It's tk@terminus.com. And would be happy to share with you, any set of slides that you could take forth and share in your company.
Awesome. And Tim, it looks like one last question did come in. What are the biggest mistakes that companies make when trying to prioritize customer retention?
Man, they don't have anybody working on it. It's like the same thing as when companies tell me that like culture is important. I'm like, really? Okay, then like who actually owns it and what budget are you putting toward it? And I think it's the same thing. So I would just say not properly resourcing it and funding it and making it very clear that it is a priority. So when I go in and look at most marketing budgets, including our own initially, it's like table scraps, to be honest. It's like throwing sort of half a person, maybe, the new guy or the new gal at it, and they get a little bit of money. I would say source it and treat it properly like you would an acquisition channel. try the same sort of experimentation, A/B testing, focus on it. It's a lot easier than these are your friends, your customers, and try it. And the second one, I think, is just not being creative and real time enough. Like I love email, I love electronic, but create stand up creative marketing programs and try some things and just get your customers talking to one another.
Great. Well, I think that's an excellent note to end on. Well, thank you, Tim, for taking the time to join us today and share those insights on retention becoming the new acquisition. We really appreciate it.